Hi, I'm Patricia Allingham Carlson, and this is my step-by-step painting, Cherry Tree at New Hope, part 2 of 6. You know, I start out in the background and move gradually to the foreground, slowly building layers to add perspective for this painting. It's really fun to build up layers in this manner, and I hope it'll give you some ideas for your own work. In part 2, I am detailing and darkening the house. I start with the negative space, move on to the decorations, and all the gingerbread trim. There's a lot of adjusting of perspective. The tree, the colors, and the foreground are also begun. I hope you'll enjoy it and give it a like. You can also subscribe so you won't miss any parts. And at my links below, you can see some of the products I used to create this work. Now let's paint. And here we are. The next time I approach this painting, Cherry Tree at New Hope. I've laid out the basics of my house, and today I'm going to tackle the structure and add some depth to the entire building. Now this was a Victorian home. It had some beautiful ornamental gingerbread trim all around the front porch, as well as in some other places on the building. So I'm coming in with a negative painting approach, painting brights and darks around the lightness of the building to define how the building's columns and structure all go together. I've laid out some bright, soft colors that were muted by the plastic wrap and the drying process. And now I'm bringing out whatever colors seem to be showing a little bit in between, as well as painting around the gingerbread work with the color and the banister below. So in other words, painting the darks by the whites make the whites appear much stronger in structure. But instead of just making it all dark on the porch, I chose to make bright, pretty colors. Not exactly realistic, but for me it's what I wanted to convey, was a dreamy, colorful day in New Hope where my husband and I took a walk down the street after visiting a lovely gallery. And I was so struck by this building and the blooming cherry tree that I stopped and took a few pictures. And that is exactly what I'm referencing here from my iPad. The tree limb grows out in front of the house, so I'm painting around where the tree is going to partially hide it. On the second floor of the house, there was a very complicated little window or turret or something that stuck out in the architecture. And I was having a very hard time figuring out exactly the perspective on this. So I had to redo that several times. The strongest light source was coming from the left of the painting and lighting up that side of the house, more so than any other place. So I'm bringing this light out right now around the windows on that side. And the gouache that I'm using is watered down, and it continues to sort of blend on into the colors that are underneath of it as it dries. So I had to add several layers of the gouache at this point. And that works best if you wait for it to completely dry between. And yes, that was me finger painting, which I frequently do, particularly when working with opaque whites. I will put colors down and then soften them with my finger. And that's a fine thing to do if you're not using toxic paint, but in this case my paints are not toxic. I'm enhancing the roof structure and shading on the top of the porch roof in order to make it stand out from the rest of the house. And I'm now adding shutters to the windows and shading. shadows around the trim work on the second floor. I'm making small little dots to convey the gingerbread trim, which was in shadow there. And with a small brush, I'm painting in between all the little bits of gingerbread trim along the porch. Putting in the darks makes the white stand out. Let you in on a little secret here. I was feeling rather fortunate at many points that so much of the tree covered up that second and third floor, because that architecture and all those angles were quite challenging to achieve. However, if I was going to put a branch with some flowers in front of the whole second level, I knew I could sort of get away with more if I made some mistakes. Now, it doesn't work for every house you do, but a couple of opportunistically placed tree limbs and some leaves or flowers can help you slide by with some problems with architecture and perspective. I've left the house and I'm moving on to the tree. Now this tree is right in the foreground. It comes right up in the front of the picture. It's very bold, so I am making some bold colors in it. The house is very ornate, and yet it's more subdued, being in the background more. But the tree had to be detailed and bold, being in the foreground such as it was. Now lots of bushes and plants came up in front of the foreground and tree. But for the feel of my picture, I did not need to make those foreground bushes super tight. I needed bright colors and strong darks. So that's my approach there. If you use bright colors in a watercolor and they don't fade away as they dry, and you feel like you've made them maybe a little too bright, they can certainly be toned down after they're dry just by applying some water and a damp brush and then using paper toweling to take up the excess color. I didn't do too much of that in this painting because I liked the brights, and we'll be proceeding with that in the next episode. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed my beginning to end painting, Cherry Tree at New Hope. I hope you'll give it a like and subscribe, and if you click on the bell, you'll get a notice whenever I release a new video. I appreciate your comments. There are links to the products I use below, and you could check them out too. I'll see you next video.